Hey, what's up, racers? We got part 2 of episode 1 with Mike from EOS U.S.A. We had to split it up into 2 videos because there's a lot of information there. So let's get started.
And then we do a lot of other fun, cool things like running dozens and dozens of other chains that don't require massive power and developing applications that, like use Web3 technology, but are more, Web2 solutions, just solving a problem. So
Awesome, dude. That's cool. Yeah, I figured you guys did more than just Bitcoin. What will be your other top other top coin that you guys are mining?
I've mostly focused back on the Antelope chains for our side. Because I mean, every time I get into any of the POS or anything, and I've had this conversation with them, it starts off at 30%. You got to learn a new tech, you spin it up, you run it, and eventually it works its way back down to the 8, 9, maybe 10% APR. And normally all chains nowadays offer 5, 6, 7% just staking APR to run the validators, right? So a lot of the POS nodes have spun up, spun down. Like I say, Antelope, because it's a completely different tech stack and even just financial structure, right? I don't have to put up $100,000 to validate. I have to get $100,000 worth of votes to vote for me in DPOS, right? So it's other people's money type of mentality, but it's a specialized talent. I mean, as you guys know, nodes don't really run themselves, and there ain't that many people that know how to run Antelope nodes or software or even consult, right? I do a lot of consulting with projects. I mean, you guys obviously have in-house tech to be able to do a lot of it yourself, but a lot of people don't understand, well, how does an NFT work? What's a template, right? How do I make the mint numbers go up sequentially? And, how do I make the pricing be reflective of the asset, not just everything in the collection type of thing, right? I mean, even just simple guidance of being there or running the infrastructure and stuff as needed, right? So we do a lot. So yeah, to focus a little more on what we call the proof of stake division, the Bitcoin mining is what we call the proof of work division, and it operates pretty money in, money out industrial plant. My proof of stake is much more, I don't know, just everything else, right? Is typically it doesn't require a lot of power. It runs on regular servers, give or take. I mean, normal Ubuntu software or Linux or even some Windows stuff, but much more in the realm of normal computer nerd stuff versus industrial plant stuff. So that's what I don't know, 8 years ago or whatever, came over full time for my managed service company that we own, to full time specialize in finding different chains and finding different projects and finding, what it's like the internet of the 1990s is what I say, is there were providers that provided the internet, right? And that's kind of like Bitcoin and industrial plant. That's the base mechanics. But there was somebody smart that sat around and said, man, this internet thing's really good. First people that thought about it were, porn, right? And it worked really well for them. But then eventually you had the guy, that was sitting in a bookstore in or the Washington or whatever and said, hey, if I put all these books online, I might be able to sell a lot of stuff, right? And ultimately now it's Amazon. And, hey, man, I'm reading a classified newspaper of all the stuff here. And then I got to go and find one for somebody. What if I just put all this stuff online, right? And boom, eBay, right? And think about all the things that really started taking off in the late 90s. It was people that realized the power of the technology. And yes, the first things that come out are not always the most flagship products, porn, but they are quick to embrace things and start to show, oh, okay. And it's the same thing with blockchain, right? I mean, you started seeing, the gambling apps and stuff like that, right? I mean, those weren't the greatest things, but they were a good use to showcase the technology and easy, hello world type of things. But ultimately, there's a whole nother world of the use of the blockchain technology. And of course, thousands and thousands of other chains. And as a business, hey, I mean, if we can make money off of it and better the world, two birds, one stone, right? So came over, started running all sorts of, weird, rando, crazy nodes and everything. And 2018, whenever EOS launched, really started getting heavily involved with the Antelope. At the time, it's EOS I.O. And had the opportunity, because we've got the building and access to hardware, I don't have to pay rental fees and, cloud hosting. And, whenever Amazon has a data center outage, we don't have any problems because we're not at Amazon, right? So there's some intrinsic benefits from not being in the same data centers as everybody else. And so really kind of found our niche, with Antelope EOS U.S.A being very technical, very powerful, but it's not like ETH where you just spun it up and let it go, right? I mean, there was a lot of expertise and over the years, a lot of polishing to the software. So I've really invested probably more than I should have, but a lot of my time and effort into the Antelope space, and pride myself on saying that if it's a public Antelope chain, we're an active block producer on it. I think I did the math. There is a block getting signed out of our server room every like third of a second, nonstop, between all the different chains that actively we're processing, actively signing the blocks, not just taking our turn. So we do them all. And of course, all the test nets, all the private, there's several chains you haven't ever even heard of that need people to run their infrastructure, either because we're here in the States, that's a benefit to some people, a detriment to others. Um, but and heavy expertise and unlimited hardware. Like I say, I'm just constantly, I don't know if you can see back here, this is the latest ones I'm building, but so kind of talking about the hardware, blockchain, especially Antelope, you think it needs big, powerful, badass servers like ASICs, right? As much power as possible, more power. But really, it's not even so much about the power. It's as much about the speed of processing things for the Antelope chain. Everything's got to be processed sequentially. So I really only need one thread of the 20 that are in here. Well, I don't need 64 or 128 that are in these big bad servers. I really need a few super, super fast cores, processors on a processor, so to say. And ultimately, Intel, in their infinite wisdom, markets the super fast chips as gaming desktop chips and scales them down some, right? Doesn't have all the extra super expensive features. But there is nothing that in a single thread, instantaneous blip can run as fast as this is an i9 14th generation, uncapped, whatever it is, right? And you can overclock them or whatever. But so ultimately, I don't have racks and racks of servers. I'll take you in there because it's just next in the room next door. Ultimately, I just buy lots and lots of gaming PCs. And just to start off with, just like stickers on your car, when you put lights on your computers, they run faster. So ultimately, these are identical, and you can see every one of them, I9.
Red, white, and blue, baby.
There you go, right? So America. So anyway, but like I say, there's about 52, I think maybe 53 up to something like that. And these are all high-end i9 gaming machines without video cards, but they're running NVMe, 128 gigs of DDR4, DDR5, redundant 700 watt power supply. Oh, I'll also show you just because I'm that kind of guy. Number one, it does look like a basement in here. I kept that motif intentionally because I built this server room in a warehouse, right? But I pride myself on that's 50 computers plugged up. I do wire management. Clean.
Yeah. That cable management is clean, boy.
I was gonna say, I got my bastard rack over there, with all the old school Dells or whatever, but literally, I don't know if you can even see inside the case, but it's literally just a big ass heat sink, NVMe drive, memory, and a motherboard. And then redundant power supplies. So anyway, but that works super, super well for blockchain applications. Because again, it's not about running 128 cores. It's more about the one or two cores that you are using actively for the chain processing. Make sure they're as fast as possible. And so, like I say, I'm a hardware guy at heart, so I like building computers and whatnot. But anyway, so from the hardware side, and as you can see, there was, I don't know, about 8 tons of air conditioner in there, a 2 ton, a 4 ton, and 2 1-tons. So I got plenty of cooling just in there, right? Completely separate from all the liquid cooling from the Bitcoin mining. Redundant gigabit internet connections, and one of the reasons I did all this here is when I was first brought on, it wasn't as important if nodes go offline, this, that, and the other, you just deal with it. But in Bitcoin mining, fun fact, if you don't have internet, doesn't matter how much power you got, doesn't matter how many ASICs you got, doesn't matter how much cash you got in the bank, you ain't making money if those things can't connect to the internet and get their mathematical equations every 5-10 minutes. So, as you can imagine, we spend an absorbent amount of money in having reliable internet. Doesn't have to be a lot of internet, but it had to be reliable. It had to be enterprise class fiber. We needed multiple carriers, different. Now we're even thinking about going HughesNet, or what's the, all the different satellites, whatever. But anyway, point was that it started with the Bitcoin miners have to have internet. So build a, enterprise class, network for the miners. Well, then it's like, okay, if I just build a little room, literally, you saw, I built a little room, insulated the hell out of it, slapped a bunch of air conditioners in there, and then I run my own little data center there. And of course, now I piggyback on the exact same enterprise level redundant gigabit internet connections. I got a couple Fortinet firewalls, like I say, we handle millions of hits per day. I've probably got about a half a gigabit of traffic nonstop, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, just flying in and out of here. And I try to tell my internet guy, I'm like, look, you don't understand. No, I don't have a virus. Literally, that's what we do, is move data back and forth. So, but like I said, we really kind of found a niche that, especially in the Antelope space, I could, and I've got my managed service IT company that I use to be able to source all my parts, right? So I just call up my procurement guy, he gets them to me cheap and at cost, and I don't even have to, I just tell him, I literally want another one of these, and he just sends me another one and sources them out and all of that, right? So I'm in a good spot to be able to be an infrastructure provider. And I'd say probably one of the more knowledgeable people of the software in the space after so many years and running so many nodes. I mean, just now I probably have about 200 nodes running on all those servers, right? I mean, you know how much break, you know how much I've learned, you know how much I told the developers, you realize this is the way it works. And actually, if you would do it this way, it might be better for the both of us, right? We were just talking about that on the Wax call earlier, is some of these features that over the years have been developed because the heavy BPs, I call them professional BPs, right? That's, I mean, it's what we do. That's what, I don't have an app. I'm an expert in providing the services, right? And layer 2 servers, history, atomic assets, IBC, Oracle nodes, I mean, there's a lot of technical infrastructure that goes into a lot of this that somebody's got to do.
Yeah, I'd imagine a lot of the problems are discovery, at trial and error. That's when you're the first person through the door and you're learning something new, and nobody else is doing it. There's no resources. You are the resource, is what it sounds like, by trial and error too, man. I know that's, sometimes you just get into things, man, and you start to tinker, and then you can't stop. And I totally get it, man.
They still joke about is that, I mean, I'm a pretty jovial guy, but when I get angry and frustrated, I exert my emotions just as colorfully. Let's put it that way. And when I first came over here, and I always lightly admit this, but my background, I spent decades. I'm an MCSE. I'm a Microsoft certified. That's my managed service business is Microsoft. My world was Microsoft. When I came over here, everything's Ubuntu, right? I mean, it's Linux, right? So I really had to kind of relearn and really get rid of my Microsoft ways and learn the Linux ways. And in 2018, 2019, you think the documentation's shitty right now. I mean, trust me, it didn't exist at all. We were all trying to figure it out. And there were times I would come out, and that's when they say, how bad of a day is it? Is Michael kicking shit yet? Is that I would get so frustrated, and I'm like, I just spent hours figuring it out, and I'm wrong, and it doesn't work, and I just don't know. And then like the power would go out or something, right? And it would just crush all of my nodes. And that's the other thing I didn't show you is I've got a 60 kilowatt generator. It's like what runs cell phone towers is this massive generator sitting out there. Because my electricians, who obviously are very good friends of ours, found this stupid awesome deal during COVID that this hospital bought it. It was too small and they couldn't return it. They had to buy another one. And this thing was just like sitting on a pallet and nobody wanted it. He's like, I know somebody that'll take it. And so, yeah, I got, it's like, I don't know, $40,000 generator I got for like 15 or something, right? So anyway, I got this crazy big generator. You know why? Because every single time those damn miners would blow out that gearbox or have some brownouts, all of my nodes would corrupt and the chains would be broken and it'd take weeks for me to fix shit. And I would be so mad, you know? And so eventually, once the markets picked up, I that was one of the first things that got approved. Before I think I maybe bought 4 new computers and then a $15,000 generator. And it's not just about overspending. There is a difference between generator power. Those little bitty small ones, they're more dirtier power. I mean, they're fake power. Like you hook a battery back up to that, they won't accept them as power. They know that power is not real power and won't even accept it because it's, specialized equipment. Whereas these big, we have a cat, but these or Generac, I think it's Generac. They have, the motors are much cleaner energy that comes off of them. Therefore, my battery backups don't blow out. Therefore, I'm not getting. It's great for power tools. It's not good for electrical sine waves. Make sense?
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, especially with the cheaper Jenny. I mean, throwing a battery on it, like throwing a capacitor on it, eventually it's going to die too, Yeah.
Correct. But whereas the bigger ones, and that's why, I mean, I didn't need 60 kilowatts. I think we can run that server farm for 3.5 weeks. It's got a diesel tank on it, so because they wanted, I don't know, it was like 20 grand to run natural gas to it. And I was like, nope, we'll just run diesel. But literally, the load I put on it, like 8,000 watts, would run for, I think it's like, 3.5 weeks. It's 8 kilowatts on a 60 kilowatt generator. So, I mean, do the math on what on your small generators, and you can understand how I can outlast any ice storm and probably another one behind it before I actually got to fill it back up.
Yeah, and then the trouble it saves you too from having to reprogram everything. That's fucking nuts, dude.
And that's what, it's still the same way. It's not good at crashing, right? The nodes are not, and that's one of the things is that other nodes and other software, when it crashes, you boot it back up, it fixes itself, rock and roll, baby. Antelope, not a chance, brother. You got some crazy shit if you even can, right? And so enough times of me kicking shit and they're saying, why are you kicking things, Michael? Because we had a power blip and literally 150 nodes are broken. It's going to take me days to fix this, literally one after another, just grinding, and I'm like, nah, bro, we got to do something better. So anyway,
that's awesome, dude. Hell yeah.
So like I say, we've kind of really found a niche in the Antelope space and running the layer 2 solutions, Atomic Assets and Hyperion. People don't understand that blockchain is great for storing data, but it is horrible for using data. It's great for validating data, but if you want to use like the detail of the data, it's hard. I equate it to your checkbook. If you want to know how much money you have in your bank right now, look in your checkbook and you can see. There's my balance. Tell me the last 10 checks you wrote to Walmart. Oh, you're going to have to go back page by page by page by page and look at all the transactions and find the ones that match what you want, correct?
Yeah.
That's exactly the way blockchain works. Each block is a page in your checkbook. And when you got to go back and find the data, you don't just ask the chain, hey, give me all the information about Walmart. You literally, just like your checkbook, have to go back through at the raw chain level and look at the data that way. That's where all these layer 2 solutions like Atomic and Hyperion and all these other different things sit on top and are much better at storing it in a relational database and then saying, Oh, you want the last 10 for your account from that, Walmart? Okay, I can run filters because I have all of the data in a database. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
But
absolutely. And for those of you who don't know what a checkbook is, it's this thing we used to carry around with paper in it. And you have to balance it with a pen and tear it out, and stuff like
I
that.
I used
Tied
to
to your
even
bank account. You can't scan it. The layer twos are better at handling information, and that's how you kind of like I guess mitigate that extra work, right? Because that would be something you'd have to do on your own or wouldn't get done or something.
or even provide. I mean, that's I'm sure. Well, Mike's gone again, but I mean, all of his projects and all of those, Nifty Wizards and Nifty Races and all of that, they need those services. Either you need public services or you have to run your own, right? So we specialize, yes, in heavy public free nodes as much as you can, but just like anything that's free and useful, it gets abused to where you have to have some limit, so to say, or even that progression of privatizing the nodes. Hey, they don't run themselves. You need somebody to kind of pay attention and understand and monitor it and upgrade it and all of that, and even offloading those types of services, or just being the general guy in the channel that's like, the other people, I don't understand this shit, what am I doing wrong? I recognize that error from about 2 years ago, and how I fixed it was this. Thanks. I mean, so like I say, that's kind of our niche. I'm not a great developer. I don't really build a lot of cool things myself, but like I say, really, I don't know, just kind of a blockchain service provider is what I settled on as a short description for the EOS U.S.A. division, POS division. Like I say, well,
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you've locked in all the mechanics and all the moving parts, man. I mean, that's what a real boss does. You have to understand everybody's job, what goes into it. And if you don't understand it, then, it's probably going to be inefficient a little bit, So kudos to you for learning everything and then being at the top and learning how to delegate properly, man. Because that seems like a really, really seamless and clean working machine. Cable management, the workspace is safe. It's nice. It looks really clean, man. I'm really impressed, dude.
I appreciate it. Like I say, always good to hear, kind words. And
I
like I say,
will recommend though, instead of those ladders, look into one of those rolling staircases.
That's funny. And I mean, we did have discussion about ladders. We only use fiberglass ladders. You know why? Because there's 2 megawatts of power flowing through all those wires. And our electrician, I think he asked for a ladder or something. I brought him, one of the little 5-foot metal ladders or whatever. And he was like, I never step foot on an aluminum ladder. And I'm like, are you too good for my ladder? And he's like, I'm an electrician. Duh. And I'm like, oh, duly noted. So as long as it was fiberglass or whatever, not metal. But like I say, we do use the fiberglass ladders. But anyway, I have to say, I mean, I lucked out. And my business partners were also my business partners at one of my other businesses. And we were all in this together, got in early. The whole reason we got into crypto and blockchain was when all the ransomware and stuff started coming out and asking for Bitcoin. We were all like, well, what the hell is this Bitcoin? Huh, that's a pretty cool thing. Huh, I can run it at my house. Okay, I'll try it out, right? So I've had this awesome opportunity to be able to, I mean, full-time since 2018, live in the space. And I'm not going to say unlimited money, but I mean, whatever I need, I get. And I don't hold a candle to what they spend, right? I mean, as I come in and I'm like, I need a $15,000 generator. And they're like, okay, I just bought 5 $15,000 pumps, right? I mean, squeeze it in, right? So it's been awesome to have the opportunity. And then, yeah, I mean, I'm passionate about it. It's the internet of the 1990s. I love being able to work with the folks like you guys that have ideas and want to do way more than you want to run the network or build servers or figure out how the hell any of this stuff works. And I get to see the Amazons and the eBays and whatnot when they're just forming. I call them, the Steve Jobs in a garage or whatever. It's really exciting. Your Nifty Races, like I told Mike, is I grew up in Arkansas, and we have very limited gambling, but we do allow horse race gambling at one horse track in the state. And so I grew up, my family had some ties there. And so we ended up going to the horse races a lot. So I grew up in the horse community and knew people that had horses. So, and I've actually toyed around with building some things similar to some of the mechanics. That's why I asked, hey, does it do this? Does it do that? Because those are some of the things I had thought about and whatever. So it's really fun to, I feel, be at the edge of bleeding technology. And of course, you're going to have stupid ETH rocks and all that dumb use of the technology that got us a bad black eye for crypto. But there are going to be some really cool uses beyond just moving money, you know, like Bitcoin, right? I mean,
Oh, absolutely. But, you know, when people say that type of stuff, I said, before blockchain came out and cryptocurrency, weren't you getting scammed through pink sheets? I'm sorry, like the stock market. Have you watched Wolf of Wall Street? I'm like, what are we talking about here? You get, no matter when there's money involved, there's always going to be bad actors. You know what I mean?
correct. That's what I say. I'm not
exploiting.
going to say they're not doing it, but just like, are you really to get rid of cash? Because you know that's what they're
That's what I'm
using
saying.
instead, right? I mean, and yes, there are rules that say you can't fly with crazy amounts of cash. If you walk into a bank and mention anything with 5 numbers in there, you got to get filled out or whatever, right? I mean, you know why? Because people still do that shit, you know? I mean, and they do 9,600 and 8,900 and whatever, right? I mean, people, not even crazy criminal bad people, just people try to bend the rules and do whatever. And if it's difficult this way and it's easier this way, you'll tend to migrate your way to the easier way. But
Absolutely.
it's just like the internet, right?
Bucks.
If you hated the internet in 1996 because all you could do was go to whitehouse.com and it was the porn site, you know, or 17.com was another one, you know, in the beginning of the internet, you know, those domain names were, and the only reason I say that is I think the magazine 17, which was a big high school girl magazine, sued the porn site over the name. And then it was a big, you know, trying to figure out the precedent of, how does this internet, Katie, whatever her name was on Good Morning America, and what is this internet and how does it work, you know? But anyway, that's what I think that's where we're at right now, is that there's a lot of scams. There's a lot of stupid ideas of, hey, maybe I can do this on blockchain. No, you shouldn't do that even in life, much less on blockchain. But I do think that there's going to be, you know, like assets. I think that GameFi, and that's how I try to explain blockchain to people, is, you know, at least grasping that concept of, and in our project, Garage ID, we don't call it blockchain. We don't call them tokens. We don't call them NFTs, other than occasionally you'll see them referenced. They're points. They're assets, digital assets. And everybody's like, oh yeah, I earn power-ups all the time in Candy Crush. My son hits me up for $20 night vision goggles in Call of Duty every Friday night. And you know what? It's worth every penny because he shuts up and he's happy. And you're okay giving that away. Well, what if those night vision goggles could be sold to somebody else for $15? Would you be happy about that? Yes. Yeah. That's the type of features that blockchain can do. Are we there yet? No. Sony still has control. Blockchain and games are still a little.
But the direction that you're talking about, essentially, that's a great one, especially when you give the illusion of Web 2 and Web 3 for people, for clients. When you go business to business and you step out of the business consumer model, you'll realize changing the lingo goes a long way with people who don't get it. It's, you know, I don't want to have to educate every single person about it. Calling them points, calling them whatever. That's brilliant, man. Smart move.
It's the same thing as, okay, I'm going to move to an EC2 AWS, you know, 4A3 server. Nah, brah, you go to the CEO and you say, I'm moving it to the cloud. And they go, here's a blank check, right? I mean, there's the details and the nitty gritty. And then there's just that generalization of, all right, I get where you're going. But once you get into, and I'm the worst, right, about the technical and the garble. And my partner, I hear this once a day in my head. I don't need to know how to build a watch. You just need to tell me the time. So that's what I think, in my opinion, effective blockchain is going to be is it's going to slip its way into, and that's what we did. We built for Garage ID. We built a Web 2 motorsport. It's got social-fi, social media mechanics. It's also a platform built for car shows and car events and different things like that. But it's all Web 2, all the login, everything like that. And then the points that you earn ultimately can be bridged out to whatever blockchain you want to go to, or the assets, are they're assets in the game. They can be redeemed. They can be, they get you free shit. They get you extra bonuses. They get you all that stuff. But if you want to take them out and do something with them, they're your assets, and just bridge them out to whatever chain. And then you can go and do whatever you want with them. And if you want to use them in the app again, bridge them back in, sell them to somebody else, they can bridge them back in. But to minimize the friction, because blockchain is still a very, very bad UX. It's a lot better than it used to be, but it's still very bad just because keys and, Wax wallet went a long way, right? I can click on Google and just rock and roll, right? Most people don't care if it's custodial or not. You know what they care about? What the is a private key? I'm supposed to tell you my public key, but not my private key. I can't even tell them apart,
Even
so
with the seamless entry, I've had people have trouble even with Wax. They're like, I don't even know which one's my wallet. I'm like, it ends in a dot. Wham. Just copy that and send it to me. They're like, I don't know where it's at. And they screenshot everything. I'm like, you could have just got scammed right now. Don't do that.
Right. And that's why
entry is the risk. Nobody wants to do things. So yeah, you're right.
And that's what I say. I mean, I think all of our current projects are, I'm not gonna say doomed to fail, but if they don't adapt to more seamless, the technology needs to evolve with them. It's not all their fault either, right? But we have an absolute astronomical expectation of what the UX should be now, right? I mean, these little devices and the accessibility and the speed and, waiting even 2 or 3 seconds for a transaction to go through. My phone doesn't do that. If I've got a 2 or 3 second lag on anything, I'm going to be booting my damn phone because it ain't supposed to be this, right? So the technology still has a long way to go underlying. But again, you build a Web 2 app and only integrate the heavier stuff where it needs. And that's probably going to be a much more palatable solution.
Absolutely. I agree.
In my opinion.
Yeah, no. I think more people need to adopt that type of mentality where you give the illusion of Web 2 during Web 3 and use the tools when needed. You don't need to go full block. You don't need to say, hey, you're changing your whole model. You're going all blockchain and promote it on your socials. No, people don't want to do that. They get for it, actually, to be honest with you. I mean, most business owners, they don't want that recognition with blockchain, but they want to utilize the tools. Yeah.
The idea and the concept can resonate with some of them, but yes, that they do not. Most people don't care. They care that it works. You will lose them way faster having an API node that's getting smashed on by Alcor bots or a block that just gets filled up or whatever, right? I mean, there's so many other things that can affect the main mechanics, and that UX is just so bad in comparison to what we're used to. We build all of I compare it to Facebook and Google. That's the experience that people are looking for. And until we're there, the platforms are really going to struggle because they're always going to be, well, that's cute, but clunky. And like I say, most people really just don't care. They don't care if they have custodial. Most people on Wax don't even care if it's custodial or not. What they care about that it works and it's an asset, right? That's when you're going to see that mainstream acceptance. Or like with our app, we do vouchers, this concept of the real world assets, right? The voucher represents something in the real world. And we actually built the mechanism to be able to run your own little retail, to create your own NFT assets, and then ultimately have people buy or collect them or whatever, and then be able to redeem them. And then it's just simple fulfillment and stuff like that, right? If it's a t-shirt, if it's a discount code or whatever. But if the utilization of assets, and like I say, it could be your asset, but just like every other game that's on the blockchain, if you don't have my application to use that asset, 99% of them are absolutely worthless, right? There might be a few that have cross utilization, but very, very few. And that's when the light bulb went off. And it's funny when I do these consultations with people, I'm like, look, I'm your block producer. I'm one of the top block producers. I block produce on every chain. I produce so many chains. This is going to sound really weird coming out of my mouth. Don't do it on the chain. If you're going to do it on the chain, you need to have an absolute reason why. Because if it's just on the chain, just to be on the chain, you're setting yourself up for failure. If it's an asset, if it's data that needs to be tracked, timestamp, whatever, there's effective utilization of it. But to make, just to pick on alien worlds, right? To make the mining action literally be a blockchain action just to play the game crushes the experience, right? You could very easily obscure that. And hey, guess what? Then you even have more power, right? Because it's in my database versus in the blockchain that I can't undo, right? I mean, if you're an elitist and have to be decentralized and immutable, your product's gonna probably struggle. I mean, you're gonna be so limited. Now DeFi, great for it, right? For the most part, other than the hacks and flash loans and stuff like that. But financial stuff and built-in contracts. When you pay this account, automatically distribute it based on a pre-arranged I mean, it's like a trust, right? I mean, you just program it into a smart contract, smart money, right? Those types of things, absolutely. But
yeah, you don't want to struggle too when you're coming into this space, and you don't want your clients to struggle. So I think people with a more seamless entry and don't become the teacher of blockchain to all of their clients, I think people are going to look towards them at first. Other people will struggle on their way to get there. Eventually they'll figure it out. And that was one of the things that I had to figure out on my own too, while bringing Web 2 into Web 3. I stopped saying that because that's not what I want to do anymore. I want to use the tools here, like you said, and just kind of make things a little bit easier for them, take the workload off. Even AI has saved them a lot of times. I mean, there's a lot of tools that you can use, but you don't have to be an AI company. You don't have to be a blockchain company. That's it.
Right.
So yeah, for everybody listening to this, if you're a community leader or you have tools to bring in new businesses into the space, please make it as seamless as possible and give them the illusion of Web 2 while bringing them into Web 3.
Correct. Or give them the Web 3, but just do it delicately and, polished, as opposed to trying to beat that round peg into a square hole, because the technology for most blockchains just isn't there yet. Will it be? Maybe, but it's definitely not now. So,
all right, brother. Hey, I'm going to hit up Mike. I want to do this later on today, tomorrow, if possible, whenever you have time, dude. I'll be available for you.
We'll catch back up. And happy to do another one down the road if you got other questions. Like I say, I love to talk. We click. So I'll be.
Hell yeah, brother.
Hit me up, man.
Hell yeah, all the time, man. Anytime. I'm looking forward to it, actually. You have a good one.
You too, my man.
Peace. I want to say thanks to Mike from EOS and my lovely co-host, Big Mike. This was a long episode. We cut it up into 2 for you. I hope you enjoy it. We will have Mike on again to go over his car website that is integrated into the chain. So we're looking forward to having you back on, Mike. Any last words for you, Big Mike? Too many mics right now.
Too many MCs, not enough mics. Yeah, I think that I definitely am super excited to hear about the car project. We never got to do that. And just thanks to everyone for joining us always. Like, comment, subscribe, do the thing with the notifications, the bell, all the fancy stuff. Sign up for our Twitter, join our Telegram, get informed about what's going on. We got lots of cool things. We got a Give Labs going on. We got lots of little contests that are happening. So jump into our chats and onto our Twitter and our social media, and you can find out more.
Yeah, make sure you join our Telegram. We'll have all the links pinned there. We have a giveaway going. You'll see it. It's in the pinned messages. You'll also find it on our Telegram or on our Twitter as well, our X account. So get into the giveaway. There's exclusive ponies being given away that will not be sold. So get in there, try your luck, get the race started. We'll see you later.